our Justice for Windrush Generation website, and you will find a third website, which is North Wales Jamaica Society. So anyone that live in Wales or have family and friends in Wales, please share that information with them. We meet on the first Saturday of each month, and I've put that information in the chat, and the website will give you more information. So please share that with your friends and family. We also want to encourage people to share all the information that we present. So if you learn something new from this platform, from the chat, please share that with friends as well, because word of mouth is very good. And that is the way we're trying to spread the information and get more people to do the same. Also, use your social media contact to share information. That's another good way to make sure people are on the same page. So as usual, I have stated that the session will be recorded. So if you want to keep your camera on or off, that is your choice. And please keep your mic muted, and that will help us so there no distraction and interference. So as usual, let's just give you some general housekeeping. So this event is sponsored by Justice for Windrush Generation. It happens twice a month. It's second and fourth Sunday of each month. And we work in partnership with our colleagues that provide the advocacy service to help individuals with their application. And that is Liverpool Advocates for Windrush, or LAW. And so the information is in the chat, how to actually make contact. Roland today is in a conference, the TUC Black Workers Conference in London. So he will say something about that a little later. Mimi is also in the conference, and they will give us an update and what's happening there over the weekend. We also will be sharing some updates with you regarding the Home Office and the compensation scheme, and we will give that information to you a little later. As usual, all information we present to you is in the public domain, and so people can access this information directly. You can do it via our website. You can do it via your own search engine, .gov.uk/Windrush compensation scheme. So you can have access to that in your own time and read the necessary information. I'm located in the northwest of England, just across Liverpool in Cheshire. And my other two colleagues are at the moment in London. They will speak later on when the opportunity arises. What we'll be discussing this afternoon is three main areas of the compensation scheme. Firstly, we'll be looking at the eligibility criteria for primary claimant, and that is the person who are making the claim for themselves. And then we'll be looking at close family claim, and that will be those people who support the primary claimant. And then finally, we'll be looking at the deceased estate, and that would be for those who were eligible to make a claim, but they pass, and as a result of that, another family member will be making that claim on their behalf. So those are the three areas that we'll be focusing our conversation on today. As usual, you will get the opportunity to ask any question for any clarification of anything that we present that you need a bit more information or you didn't quite understand. So please make sure that you come back to us if you need clarity. So that is the scene for this afternoon conversation. And the first thing we'd like to say with regards to Windrush, we always like to establish the Windrush timeline so that people understand, when Windrush starts and whether or not they fit within that timeline. That's quite important. And we will be giving you some dates. And again, dates are important because dates will determine whether or not you're eligible to apply to the Windrush compensation scheme or status. We say that because it is two separate schemes. So rectifying your status or make an application for compensation. And we always make the point that the first thing one should establish is their status, to make sure they have the right documentation that will prove that they have the right to be living in the UK. And we always make this point that after you've done that, then the compensation would relate to whether or not you had suffered any loss or you've been impacted because you could not evidence and show documentation that you have the right to be here, even though you may be born in the UK. Okay? So firstly, let's establish the Windrush timeline. We often refer to Windrush generation, and it's good to make the point that when we talk about generation, we're talking about generation 1, generation 2, generation 3, generation 4, generation 5. And sometimes we use the terminology as well, descendants. Yes. So we sometimes refer to those generation as descendants. Okay. So you will hear those common language. Just to give you a little bit about my own situation, I am a descendant and I am a second generation Windrush. My parents arrived in the UK in 1957 as a first generation. And I have children and grandchildren. I haven't got any great grandchildren as yet, but if I'm the second generation, then my children would be third, and their children will be fourth, and their children would be fifth, and so on. And we're also trying to get this information across to make sure that the younger generation, and that is probably what we call the descendants, understand the earlier generation journey and their history. And it's also good for the younger generation to talk with their grandparents and parents and uncles and aunties about Windrush. Okay? So, a lot of people don't know sufficient about their family history. It's good to have the conversation and to say, well, granddad or grandma, when did you come to the UK? Granddad, when did this happen? So it's good to have those conversations. That's the history that we want to preserve, and the legacy that will pass on to the next generation when we are no longer around. So it's good to share your history and your experience with your family members. So, firstly, let's establish the Windrush compensation scheme and status is the way the government is addressing the experience in the hostile environment that some of us only heard about in 2018 when the scandal broke. So in 2018, the scandal broke, and the Guardian newspaper reported that this would have impact on up to 50,000 people. And that was considered to be a conservative number, because when you think about the people affected by Windrush, and let me emphasize straight away that it is not the Caribbean people only affected by Windrush. So when we think about Windrush as a global issue affecting people from 56 Commonwealth countries and then another 9 overseas protective territories, we then have a global history to consider. 65 countries, as the Home Office state on their guidance. 65 country is a lot of country. And if I remember rightly, I think there's, last time I counted, I think there's about 23 or 25 Caribbean islands. Stand to be corrected, it could be slightly more, but that was the last count I did when I was looking at the Caribbean islands. And not all the Caribbean islands came under British rule. Okay? So the scandal broke in 2018, and then the first time we heard about this, we didn't quite understand what the implication would be. My family has not been directly affected by Windrush, but I have many friends and people I know closely that is affected. So the government has set out to correct this by introducing this compensation scheme and status rectification. In other words, getting your documentation, evidencing you got the right to be here in the UK. And so the Home Office produced guidance as part of the compensation scheme. And the guidance is very important for us to follow and to understand. So we need to check the guidance against our information. And the guidance actually tell us as to who can apply to the Windrush compensation scheme and status. Who can apply? And we mentioned that date is important. So sometimes you need to get a piece of paper and maybe make some notes to yourself. Just make some notes so that you can have a reference point. So who can apply to the Windrush compensation scheme and status? The timeline that we're referring to start in 1948 with the first generation. So bear that in mind. That's the first generation, generation one, if we want to give it that term. And from 1948, there has been many generations, as I mentioned. I'm second. So what the OMOFs have done, they have given us the eligibility criteria to identify if we're eligible to apply to this scheme, and also as to when we arrive in the UK. So I'm reading directly from the guidance notes. You can apply if you came to the UK from a Commonwealth country before 1973. Your parent or your grandparent came to the UK from a Commonwealth country before 1973. So let's just pause for a moment. So firstly, you as an individual must arrive in the UK, right, by a particular date before 1973. Your parents and your grandparents also need to arrive in the UK by that date, 1973, from a Commonwealth country. Any of the 56 countries that I mentioned, 56 Commonwealth countries. So here we have a date. Make a note of that date. The date must be by or before 1973. Whether yourself, your parent, or your grandparent. And then the next one, you came to the UK from any country. Notice the point, any country before 31st of December 1988 and are now settled here in the UK. Settled is an important word. Settled in the UK. So we've established a date, 1973. We've established coming from a Commonwealth country. We've established from any other country, but by a later date, 31st of December, 1988. Sometime we say 1st of January, 89. Yes, important dates. So if you can tick, say yes to that information, yes, you were here before 1973. Yes, your parents or grandparents was here before 1973. Yes, you were here before the 31st of December, 1988. You can say yes to any of those, then that is the eligibility criteria tick. Please make a note that if you arrive in the UK later than those dates that I've just referred to, for example, 1999, or after 2000, then I'm sorry to say the Windrush compensation scheme cannot assist or help you. You would need to seek advice through an immigration advisor, lawyer, etc., because you're outside of the Windrush compensation scheme. Now that we've established dates, and I did say it's always good to talk to parents and grandparents, aunties and uncles, because we also need to know, when did they arrive here? What was their situation? So, in a nutshell, 1948 up to 1988 is the Windrush timeline. So the start and the finish, that is the Windrush timeline. Now, we mentioned that the Home Office produced guidance to help us to fill out and make the application. And the guidance must be consulted and must be used when you are making or writing your application, filling out your application. Don't just attempt to fill an application out without consulting the guidance. Each of the questions, the guidance will help you to understand the question so you can formulate your written response. We've always said, given the circumstance of individual, not everyone can read the guidance and apply the information accordingly. Many people will need some help with understanding the guidance and then responding with their written response on the application, what to put on the application itself, whether that's a physical copy or electronic copy. And we know it is the case with first and second generation that a lot of the older people may not have the literacy skills and understanding to cope with all of this themselves. And for that reason, they should seek some help. And if you look in the chat, that's where I've given you the website, contact information for Liverpool Advocates for Windrush that is there to help with the application process, forms, etc. I will keep referring to that throughout our session. We also know it is the case because we have these conversations with people up and down the country that when an individual try to do the application on their own, not in every case, often the application when sent to the Home Office and the Home Office will assess the application and return a nil award. And there may be many reasons why that is the case. it is also the case that if you haven't provided sufficient information on your application to the Home Office caseworkers, they will draw a conclusion based on the information that you have submitted that this person is not eligible for an award. Or if they are eligible for an award, it might be the very minimum award that is offered based on the information that is given. And remember that the caseworkers will only use the information that you have put on the paper. They will not be thinking that this person may have experienced X, Y, Z, but they haven't actually say that. No, that is not their job to do that. They will go solely on what is written on the application. That's how they will assess your case. So it is very important that your application is a true reflection of your experience over many years. And so when we look at, for example, impact on life, and you've only written 3 or 4 lines, that is not going to tell me enough about that impact that you've experienced. So we've established that you're eligible to make the application. The next thing is now how to actually start that process. We always recommend that before you complete the final application, whether on a paper copy or online, you get some plain pieces of paper and draft your responses first. So you go through all of the questions with the guidance, and you start to write your responses for each question on a draft paper, not the one you're going to be sending to the Home Office. You're drafting your responses first. And you may well have to do 2 or 3 drafts, the same way when you're writing your essays and you start and you stop and you start and you stop. And by doing that and spending some time on the drafting of your application, answering these various questions as to how you've been impacted, when you finish the draft, before you transfer that onto the actual application itself, get somebody to have a look over your draft. Preferably somebody who have got a good understanding about this, maybe somebody who have made an application before, maybe somebody who has helped another person with an application, or better still, an advocate. Okay? So you've done your draft and you now want an advocate to have a look at it and see whether or not you've actually covered and have you addressed all of those issues, which is part of your story. And then while you're doing that with the person, let's say the advocate may ask you some question on detention. What was the circumstance of this? How did that happen? May ask you something on homelessness. When did you lose your house that you became homeless? And they will ask you other questions, right? In order to make sure that what you have put on your application, the substance of that is well covered. See? And if it isn't, they will help you to add a bit more substance to your responses. And that's going to make a big difference to your story. And when the Home Office caseworkers receive your application, that is going to be a true reflection of what has happened to you over the last 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. And what we say to people, the first thing on the application is your personal information. And your personal information will be your name, your address, dates of birth, etc. We know the personal information. We've filled form in before. But please make sure that your personal information, your full name, is written exactly how it is on your birth certificate. That there is no misspelling of your name on this application, so that the Home Office will be thinking that is not you, that is somebody else. Because instead of Derek, it becomes Garrick with a G or something similar. Okay? So make sure that your name is exactly as it is on your birth certificate. Make sure that your date of birth, again, these are detail important, that your date of birth is correct, no error, month, day, month, year. If you're known by another name, there's also the place for you to put that information. A lot of us have adopted other names. Some of us have changed our name. But again, we go by what's written on your birth certificate, and you can add where other names, you can make sure you put that information so you can be identified. Okay? And there is no misunderstanding as to who you say you are. The other important thing, that each of the questions on the application must be answered. And if there is a question that is not applicable to you, to your situation, do not leave it blank. Put the word N/A, not applicable. If you leave it blank and send it off to the Home Office, they will have to contact you to find out why that is left blank. And again, that's another delay in your application being processed. So we need to get it right the first time. Make sure all the information is there the first time. Okay? Don't give them an excuse, right, for delaying your application because you made an error and they have to come back and for you to correct that, for it to go back again. No, try and get it right the first time. Okay. So We've now started the application with your personal information. And as we said, the guidance is there for you to consult. For each of the questions, the guidance is there to help you to get the understanding as to what you should say and what you should put on that question response. So we mentioned the fact that there is status rectification and then there's compensation. And the compensation is a result of what you suffer, what losses you may have had because you could not produce evidence that you have the right to be here in the UK. We're going to give you some example of that. And that may just be rectification of your status only that you need to do. You probably haven't had any issues, just your status. That's fine. Do that, status sorted. But there are those who have had issues with not just their status, but that has impacted so much on their life over many years. That is where the compensation scheme kicks in. And sometimes the words is used, suffer losses or being impacted. So the Home Office used the term, losses that you can claim for. I'm going to give you some of the listing straight from the guidance. You might be able to get compensation for losses relating to employment. I'll just read them through. We'll come back to highlight a couple. Employment, immigration fee, housing, health, education, driving license, banking, daily life, for example, miss major event or could not travel, detention or removal, living costs, for example, rent, utilities, contribution towards food, household essential, travel, and prescription fees. So again, some of that may apply to an individual, or maybe most of them could apply to an individual. We don't know your own circumstance. What we do know that many of those will apply, but we don't know how many. So let's just take the first one around employment. So you were in full employment prior to 2010. Let's just use that an example. You're in full employment prior to 2010. And around about 2012, 14, that period, after working in the job for 10, 15, maybe 20 years, your employer came to you and say to you, Mr. Smith, I would like you to bring some documentation in for us to check that you have the right to work in the UK. So can you bring your passport in on Monday? So Mr. Smith might be thinking, I haven't got a passport. So Mr. Smith could not bring a passport in on Monday. As a result of that, the employer had to dismiss Mr. Smith. So Mr. Smith has lost his job. But Mr. Smith has worked there for 15, 20 years. And the reason why the employer had requested this information is because the government had instructed and brought about new law and instructed all employers they knew they need to do a check to make sure that all their employees have the right to work in the UK. And the penalty for not doing the check would be thousands of pounds to the employer. And the employer is not going to take a chance. So the employer will just do what he needs to do. And no documentation, I'm sorry, I can't, I have to dismiss you. Now, the spin-off to losing your job, and don't forget, you have a mortgage, you have a family, and now you have no job. And you cannot sign on at the DWP to get any benefit, because now anything relating to public fund, you are not eligible. You cannot apply to anything at all. So can you just imagine what will be happening to this individual and their family? Okay? So the first month of not paying your mortgage, that's all right. Second month, you get a letter from your mortgage provider because you've not paid your mortgage. And if you run for 3 months, they will actually take action against you, and not just against you, but they will take away your house. And that will leave you with nothing. And so this is where friends and family will come in to help. Or you might be on the street, homeless, on the street, nowhere to go. Now, we've got all the physical issues, but now think about the mental trauma and issues, losing your livelihood, thinking about as a parent, your children, yeah? You're thinking about the whole family. Think about all of this and how you're going to be dealing with all of this situation. Yeah? So that's just one area around employment, losing your job. So the losses also mention other things: housing, health, education, driving license, bank, etc., etc. So these are all big issue, and all of this will have an impact on the individual and their family. So when it comes to completing the application and saying what has happened to you and the losses that you have suffered, you need to start go into detail as to any of those. And if, for example, you state that you lost your job, what date was that? Yeah, you need to sort of give some evidence. When did that happen? Okay, don't be worrying too much about, the company is no longer in existence, right? They went out of business 5 years ago. That's not a big problem. We can deal with that, because during your employment, you pay national insurance and you pay income tax to the government. So there will be record relating to the tax collected from Mr. Smith. So if you then say, oh, the year was 1975 to 1989, the record will show the dates when they consult the record. But make sure the information that you are reporting on in terms of what has happened to you, you've got evidence that you can back it up. So you're not saying things that didn't happen. If you can't remember dates, that's not a big problem, right? But you're not saying things that did not happen to you. It's important that you reflect in your story what has happened to you. And the reason why this is important is because at the end of the application, there's a declaration. And the declaration has asked you to say, it reminds you that what you have written on this application, yeah, to the best of your knowledge, is correct. Yeah? And you have to sign that and date it. Yeah? Just like going into the court and saying you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. Yeah? So you have to the best of your knowledge, yeah, give the information. You're not making up stories that is not true. It is what has happened to you over many years. Any comments on any of that, what I've just said? Now, the Home Office work on the basis of, if they want to check whether or not your information is correct and so forth, they work on the basis of, what is it, 51%? Yeah. Tanika, can you just tell us how does a 51% work?
Hi, Garrick. It's on the balance of probabilities.
Yes.
And 51% is more than 50 or 49. So it must be highly probable or likely probable that you would have suffered or something to that effect.
Yes.
Whatever it is you're claiming. So the balance of probabilities is more likely to have happened compared to not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's important also that when you are going through each section of your claim, that it is a reflection, because as I said, homelessness might be one area that make up your claim. Impact on life may be another area that make up your claim. Another area could be detention and removal. We always make the point that often is forgotten, that when we travel in and out of the UK and returning to the UK, if we're detained at the airport before we actually come through, and if we're detained for more than 30 minutes, then you record that as detention. So if, for example, you were moved into a separate space, into a room, and the immigration officers were there with you, asking you questions about your journey and other information, how long you've been out the UK, and have you got family here, and all sorts of information that they will be asking. And then that time may lapse to about 45 minutes or so. And then they give you your passport and you go through and you clear custom and you come out and you meet your family and you go about your business. So you've been detained and you put that on your claim. Yeah. And we don't know how many times that you've traveled in 40 years and that has happened to you. then you will put the number of times that has happened to you. If it's 3, 4, 5 times you've been detained, you will put that down. Okay? And sometimes you probably don't even remember how many times until you start to have the conversation, or the advocate or somebody prompt you and you say, oh yes, I remember, and so forth. It comes back to you. So each of those particular areas of loss, you have to explain, yeah, what has happened to you and when it happened to you. It also says, and this particular area, you know, losing your job and losing your house, it goes without saying, losing your bank account because you won't have no income, nothing to go into the bank. Yeah. You may have children that want to go to university who had a place in university, apply, but when all this happened, then sorry, can't go. What about unable to travel abroad? Yeah. Major event that you could not travel. Again, how many times did that happen to you? Yeah. Again, put it down. And then there are some people who have spent time in detention center for months. Yeah, immigration detention center for months. Again, when did that start? What date was that? When did it start? When did it finish? Important. Living costs, for example, rent, utilities, contribution towards food, household essential, travel, and prescription fees. Yeah. So that just give you some example of where an individual may have suffered loss. And as I said, the word suffer losses or being impacted, right? Both the same. So the Home Office terminology, you've suffered loss. And you notice it says you might be able to get compensation for losses relating to all the following. You might be, because again, subject to the information that the responses that you have given. And again, Tanika just says probably 51%, because it's likely that happened or it did not happen. If it did not happen, it will fall below that 51%, 49, whatever. Yeah. So that is the first primary claimant application process. The individual making the claim for themselves. Whether they're doing it solely by themselves or somebody assisting to do the application, that's the primary claimant. We're now going to talk about another claim, and this is close family claim. And we're trying to get as much people to understand this particular area of claim, because we're not getting sufficient people coming forward to make close family claims. And when you think about it, those are the people that have been supporting primary claimants, those people who lost everything, and friends and family been supporting them. All of these people are close family. Now, we do have definition given by the Home Office in the guidance in terms of who is constituted to be a close family. And we also have some additional information to give you on this that has come out of our recent visit to Bristol, and the Home Office have responded around this area. And I'm going to get Roland to tell us about this in a moment. But this is the second area of claim that we want to focus on this afternoon. So we've done the primary claimant. We're going to talk about close family claims, and then we're going to finish off with the deceased estate claim. So those will be the three areas of focus this afternoon. So we want a definition of close family, and as we've said, that each of the claims comes with guidance. So I have some paper copy here. Primary claimant paper copy. You can find all of this on .gov.uk/Windrush compensation scheme. So you can actually, in your own time, have a look at the claim form and also the guidance notes. And we know that the guidance is something that have to be read. So 44 pages of guidance for primary claimant must be read. And I think it's 24, if I can remember rightly, top of my head, 24 for close family. And we also encourage people to also have a look at the caseworker's guidance, because that is the document that the caseworkers will be using to make their decision on your application. And there's a good reason why we're asking people to read that and have it as a good reference point, because it is the case that the Home Office caseworker should be following that casework guidance. However, we know that they're not following the casework guidance, and we have examples of that, and we have challenged them on where they're not following the casework guidance. Okay? But if you are able to read that information and know what it says, you're in a better position, right? So when they respond to your application, because you know what the response should be, or what they should be considering in their response, and they haven't, you then can challenge that. Okay. So the caseworker's guidance is a lot of pages, over 102 pages or so. It's a lot of pages, but it should be used as a reference point so that you can check to make sure that they are abiding by the casework standard they produce. Yeah, they produce the casework guidance for their caseworkers. Yeah, so it's important that you know something about that. You understand the content of that. You understand what they're looking for when they're looking at your application. Very important. So, a close family members Windrush compensation scheme guidance update, 23rd of April 2024. So you can read this for yourself. It's on the .gov.uk site. And the first paragraph says, changes from the last version of this guidance. Information about obtaining medical evidence. So there are two changes. information about obtaining medical evidence and eligibility, spouse, and unmarried partners. So notice those are the two additional updates that is included in the April 24 guidance. I'll just pause for a moment there. Roland, can I bring you in now, please?
Hello?
Hello, yes?
Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay, I'm outdoors. I have to be, because I'm coming from an event.
Yeah.
So you will hear a bit of background noise, but you can't hear me at any point. Just let me know.
Yeah. Just
Right.
for a moment. Let me just tell the audience. So Roland has just attended the TUC Black Workers Conference in London. Roland and Mimi is actually there. So that's why he's referred to some background noise. He just come outside of the building. So you will get a bit of noise, but he will still be able to tell us about a couple of updates, but also deal with the close family claim as we just mentioned.
So good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Thank you for attending. So Garrett just went through the primary claimant and the deceased estate claim. I'm going to do a quick run through again. So in order, there's eligibility and there's entitlement. I'll go through eligibility quickly, and I'll go through entitlement, then I'll go into the close family member claims. In order to be eligible to apply to the scheme, you would have had to enter the UK from a Commonwealth country before the 1st of January, 1973. The mode of transportation is of no significance. It says where from and when. Secondly, you enter the UK from any country before the 1st of January, 1989. Or in fact, to be precise, before the 31st of December, 1988. We're talking near enough the end of 88. From any country, and it does not say except Commonwealth country. And you have continuously lived in the UK since. Thirdly, you enter the UK before the age of 18 years old, and your parent and or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. That one may need a little bit of elaboration on, but I've not got the notes in front of me. Fourthly, and this one is ignored by many. A lot of times when I mention this one, we're near enough dismissed and said, oh, I was born in the UK, so I'm okay. You were born in the UK, and your parent and our grandparent came from a Commonwealth country. So if you're born in the UK, you're eligible to apply as well. Entitlement. In order to be entitled for compensation, you would have had to have your life impacted due to your inability to prove that you got a right to be in the UK. In a lot of cases, when we hear presentation, they're very UK centered. So an instance, an idea, an indication or a situation that could have occurred is that you're born in the UK with your other British passport, you traveled outside the UK, passport expired, and you went to the High Commission in Congo or in America, wherever, and you were not treated as British. Many cases, they may have been told you don't look British or whatever excuse was given to you. And as a result of that, you are stuck outside the UK. By time you get back to the UK, get your British passport sorted out in Congo or wherever, and got back to the UK, you may have spent 6, 7, 8 months or years in some cases, and by the time you get back to the UK, you've lost your job. So that is an indication of entitlement. Gary mentioned can't work, or was not allowed to work, was not allowed to get benefit, goes on the housing register, student loan, etc., etc. Those are just indicators of what could have happened. That's not an exhaustive list. Numerous things could have happened. But those the primary claimant and the primary and deceased estate claimants. There's absolutely no difference between a primary and a deceased estate claim. None, absolutely none. Except that individual that would have been eligible and entitled as a primary claimant is now deceased. And as a result of that, a executor of the estate, of the deceased individual estate, or the next of kin can submit a claim, which is a deceased estate claim. A deceased estate claim, there's a process that you have to go through, especially when there's no will, probate, but I'm not going to go into probate now. So that's the primary claimant and the deceased estate claim. Close family member. A close family member of the deceased that would have been eligible as a primary claimant, or a close family member of a primary claimant can submit a claim. So when I say close family members, who are we talking about? Are we talking a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th cousin removed, or some great in-law? No. There are a specific group of close family members they are referring to that are eligible to apply. And the group is as follows. 1, parent of the deceased or the primary claimant. Secondly, wife or husband of the deceased or primary. Thirdly, children of deceased or primary. Fourthly, siblings, brothers and sisters. And fifthly, anyone that has lived in a relationship with the deceased or the primary claimant, lived in a relationship with them for more than 2 years. And as Garrett mentioned earlier on, and this was one we've been pushing the Home Office on, is stepchildren. Before it was not explicit written into the guidance note, it was more implicit, implied. Assumption was made. It was a bit ambiguous and vague. But now it is stipulated in the guidance note as of the 23rd of April that stepchildren can apply. And by default, if stepchildren can apply, it stands to reason that step-parents can apply. Because stepchildren and step-parent go together. That you've got 2 elements to close family member claims. You've got impact on life, that is how you're impacted, emotionally, stress, anxiety, etc., due to what you saw or what you experienced. Your close family member going through the primary claimant. So that individual that is impacted, that individual that wasn't allowed to work, that individual that couldn't get housing benefit, that individual that traveled outside the UK and had issues returning to the UK. You saw them going through that. It was your mother, your father, your sister, brother, etc., that impacted you, caused you to be anxious, stressed, etc., impact on life. Or you may have had to spend money on them, or they may have moved in with you. That is the living expenses element of it. It says close for all those lists that I went through, from parent all the way up to stepchildren, those can apply. What doesn't say is that there's a number. It does not say X amount of brothers or sisters, etc. can apply. You say they can apply. So let's say the primary claimant are the deceased, entitled deceased, had 7 children, 8 brothers and sisters. Mother and father is still alive. Married, got divorced because this went on for an extended period of time, 7, 8 years. That the impact was going on with this primary claimant having issues. So he divorced, or she divorced, 3rd or 4th year in, and got involved in another relationship where it could have lasted 3, 2 years, or however long, but 2 years or more. So in this case, all 7, 8, 9 brothers and siblings, brothers and sisters with siblings, and the 7, 8, 9 children can apply. And his wife that he has now divorced, that was living with him when the problem started, and also he or she got involved, or they got involved in another relationship with someone else that lasted more than 2 years before this whole saga was finally resolved. So we got all those close family members can apply. A lot of cases, the impression is given that you supported the primary claimant or the impacted individual, whether deceased or primary claimant. Supported can be interpreted in many ways. You were impacted. As long as you were impacted emotionally, anxiety, stress, inconvenience, etc., you can submit a claim. You don't need to have supported that person financially or supported them emotionally. You don't need to have been crying on the shoulder. I don't mean to be cruel, but I'm saying it this way to make a point. And you don't need to have been coming around your house every evening and crying on the shoulder in order for you to have support them emotionally. You don't need to have supported them, whether financially or otherwise. It's primarily about you, the close family member, what you saw. To use an analogy, you were stood at the bus stop, you saw your wife, husband, etc., the primary claimant going by, and they slipped and fell. You did not fall, however, you saw them fall. And as a result of them falling, you were impacted emotionally, etc., etc. And I don't mean to minimize what has gone on. Here's another analogy that I usually use, but I've chosen not to use that analogy because that analogy can be triggering. So important to remember is that no limit on the amount of close family member claims, and who are these close family members that can submit a claim. And also, you don't need to have supported them financially or any other support. It's what primarily about you. I mentioned living expenses earlier on. Living expenses that you support the individual can be in various ways. They could have moved in with you, and as a result of them moving in with you, to live with you, so for serve, etc., then your bills went up, so you were supporting them financially. Or in some cases, you may have given them money to buy food, calling cards, internet connection, etc., etc. General living expenses. That's all support. Whenever you're going to submit a close family member claim, it's good to speak with other close family members, the sisters, the brothers, etc., children of the primary claimant or the deceased individual. I always suggest that if you can have a group call, family meeting, that everyone is on the same page. And I always say this, in many families, you got a gatekeeper, sometimes more than one, but in most cases it is one. That particular individual that has chosen to be the family accountant, the family lawyer, etc., and everything has got to go through that individual. Any information you want, you have to go to that individual. If you want documentation, and nothing will happen in the family without that individual. This would not be a good time for that situation to occur, because you need bits of information for each and every one. Spoke earlier about the individual that traveled outside the UK, and if you stopped at the airport, the document was taken, you do not need to have gone into a room as such. As long as the situation lasted for more than half an hour, for more than 30 minutes, where your passport was taken and your documentation was taken, and you were being questioned. They may say they're going to make some phone calls, etc., etc. And when these situations occur, you do not need to have, well, I'll rephrase that. Even if you've got a British passport, that situation can occur. Got a situation a couple of months ago where a vlogger went to Jamaica. She has been living there for the past couple of years, doing business there. She, British, went to school here, everything, full-blown British, so to speak. No excuse, no reason for her not to assume that she's not British. She was traveling with her documentation, degrees, certificates, etc., etc. And on her return to the UK, she was stopped at the airport and was delayed because for whatever reason, they chose to stop her and may have suspected that she did not have proper documentation or whatever, because things did not seem to be the way they expected it to be. Not usual for people to be traveling from outside the UK with whatever certificates. That situation lasted for half an hour or more. Grandma, grandpa, whatever, went to Ghana and returned back to the UK. One of the sons, he's got 7 children, one of the daughter, whoever, or his grandchildren, went and picked him up at the airport. By the time he get back in the house from London Heathrow to Bingley in Yorkshire, them driving in the car within 20 or 25 minutes, that may have just shared the information with that particular individual that went to pick him up. By the time they get 25 or 30 minutes into the car drive, he will be talking about the experience he had in Kenya, the food, the weather, etc., etc. And that individual that went and picked him up is the only one that has got the information. Other brothers, sisters, etc. do not know. So that's why I say, whenever the close family member claims are going to be submitted, speaking to each other. Have that Zoom call, have that WhatsApp group call, and have that discussion. In fact, not only close family member, in fact, when any claims are going to be submitted, it's good to have that family discussion. Now, a lot of times they say you don't want people to know your business and so on and so forth. I do understand that, but this is about getting, first of all, get the story right. And when I say story, I use the term story loosely. Get the story right. What's happening, the chronological order, etc., etc. It is not a dissertation that you're writing. Nothing wrong with writing, simple and straightforward. I came here 1968 or wherever, from wherever, and I was working at XYZ. I was asked to bring in documentation. I brought the documentation in. They were not happy with the documentation. They called the Home Office, etc., etc. Simple and straightforward as that. And do not wander off at a tangent. Just write. That is why I would say understand the guidance note. Once you understand the guidance note, not only the caseworker guidance note, you've got the caseworker guidance note, and you've got the guidance note for each category: primary, deceased, and close family member. Have a clear understanding of what you're going to write or what you're going to submit. Very important to speak with other close family members, other members, when you're going to submit that close family member claim, that you can get all the information, because in many cases, there are individuals, especially those that were born in the UK, that would exclude themselves from the scheme because assumption is made. Do not assume. The guidance notes are there. Please read them. If you are born in the UK and your parent or grandparent came from a Commonwealth country, please do not be making an assumption that you've got your British passport, etc., etc. And as a result of that, it does not apply to you. I'm coming from the conference. I've been at that conference since Friday, and I've heard numerous stories where individuals assume that because they're born in the UK and they've got a British passport, then they're not eligible to apply to the scheme and would not be entitled to compensation. Please act based on information and what you know by reading the guidance note, and do not act based on what you assume. If there's anyone in here that has already submitted a claim as a primary claimant or submitted a deceased estate claim and you've been made an offer, my number is in the chat. Please contact me and I'll have a discussion with you. Even if it's at the tier 1, where it's only 10,000, it's at that point you should be thinking close family member claim. That should trigger the close family member claims, brothers, sisters, etc., etc. Garrick, I'm going to hand back to you at this point. If there's any questions or any elaboration or clarification is needed, I'm here. I'm listening. Thank you very much for listening. Garrick, back to you.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks very much for that, Roland. And so let me just pick out a couple of really important points to re-emphasize. So firstly, Roland did say in his response, according to the latest information, so we attended a session in Bristol on the 20th of April with the Home Office, and there were 3 members, including the policy officer, etc. And out of that conversation, we raised the issue around stepchildren and needed more clarification in terms of written in the guidance. And now we can confirm that it is now, as Roland just mentioned, it's now in the guidance as of April 23rd. So it's important to know when changes are being made from the Home Office. And also, as we keep emphasizing, you must get familiar with the casework guidance that the caseworkers are using to assess your claim. Very, very important. So that is a good outcome for us to make sure that we keep challenging the Home Office, particularly in some of these claim areas, and get some positive result. Now, I'm just going to make a couple of additional points to what Roland has said regarding close family claim. So directly from the guidance, close family member claim under the age of 18, listen carefully. If you're under the age of 18 and making a claim, you will need a parent or a guardian or someone with parental responsibility to send the claim in on your behalf. Now, we do know that there are many young carers looking after family members, and that is common in the Black community and in the white community. Young people are caring for other family members under the age of 18. And so, although the young person cannot make the claim directly themselves, somebody can submit the claim on their behalf. So it must be a parent, a guardian, or someone with parental responsibility to send the claim in on behalf of the young person under the age of 18. The second point that I need to add, it's regarding close family claim who lack capacity. Now, this is also important to note, lacking capacity. And we need to understand why this is important. Let me read again directly from the guidance. If a claimant lack capacity, unable to take decision, listen carefully, the person unable to take decision a person who has the power of attorney, the legal authority to act over the claimant's financial affairs, can send a claim on behalf of that person. Where there is no power of attorney, a deputy guardian or a controller with control over the claimant financial affairs can send a claim on behalf of the claimant. If outside the UK, a person who has the equivalent power may send the claim. Okay? So whether you're in the UK or out of the UK, you notice it said if you're out of the UK, somebody with the equivalent power of attorney, power of authority can make that claim be out. Let me just read this again, and please make a note of this. You can consult the guidance yourself on the close family claim. So if a claimant lacks capacity and they're unable to take decision, a person who has the power of attorney, the legal authority to act over the claimant financial affairs, can send a claim on their behalf. Where there are no power of attorney, a deputy, a guardian, or a controller over the claimant financial affairs can send a claim on behalf of that person. And this is the point: if the claimant is outside the UK, a person who has the equivalent power may send that claim in. So again, please read and consult that. Erman?
Thanks for that, Garrick. Appreciate it. There's been no changes to that on the website, has there? What you've read there, there's been no changes. That's as verbatim as you've read it, basically.
Yes, correct.
Yeah?
As it is, yes.
Okay, there's one other thing. I was thinking equivalent. Now I was thinking, is that for someone equivalent from outside of the UK can do that? Yes. On the person's behalf.
Yes, because that is my understanding.
That's my understanding. But my worry with the Home Office, because to use the term where they equivocate on this, I don't know what the levels basically of equivalence in the Caribbean is with regard to someone with a power of attorney, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I suspect that it's in a legal term. So I suspect if there is a solicitor or a lawyer, legal person, is consulted and a documentation can be verified from that source, I suspect that would be accepted.
Okay, thanks. I think that's a good question. That specific area.
Yes,
I think that's a good question to pose to the Home Office.
We will raise that. We will try and get a bit more definitive on that one. Thank you.
And well done for the changes, because I know it's through the work of yourself, specifically with regard to yourselves, Tanika, and especially with Roland on the ground here and yourself. I know you've been badgering away. I know that because I've been hearing the noises.
Yeah.
So well done for those changes there. And I hope you guys get the plaudits for it, although I know you guys are sharing it. Yes. Yeah. I hope you do, because I'm aware of others who bathe in reflected glory, so to speak.
Yeah.
But well done for that.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thanks very much. And the most important thing, we want to see more close family claims being made. And and Roland made a good point. As soon as offer is being made to the primary claimant, then that should give you the green light, to actually, get your close family claims. And I noticed, Roland didn't give you a number, but there is no number to how many claims a person can have. Yeah, Roland, you have your hand up.
Can you hear me, Garrick?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Regarding the close family member, regarding the power of attorney, is the UK's protocol that we follow regarding the power of attorney. From past experience dealing with pension and so on, when it comes to power of attorney, it will be drafted here. It can be drafted here in the UK, following UK's protocol, and then signed in Jamaica, for instance, usually witnessed by a solicitor, lawyer, or whatever, attorney, or whatever term one to use. Drafted in the UK by UK protocols and principles, signed in Jamaica, witnessed by a lawyer, stroke solicitor. So not because it's Windrush, it's power of attorney as power of attorney go. And there's a specific government agency that deals with power of attorney. Can't remember the name now.
Okay. And I can tell you
just one other thing, Garrick, regarding the changes that we're campaigning for. We have been communicating with Professor Livermore in meetings with him, etc., for over a year now. And there are a number of other areas we are campaigning for changes. The stepchildren, we think grandchildren as well should be able to submit close family member claim. Also in-laws, parents-in-law, children-in-law as well should be able, we think, should be submit close family member claims. And also close family members that are outside the UK should be able to submit close family member claims as well. That's to say, a lot of times when these discussions take place, they're very UK centered. A lot of those people that were stuck outside the UK, they had close family members that supported them outside the UK. And you may have seen it, the Nadine White documentary, The Buried Children, those left behind. But there's another group as well, the nearly born here. Because a lot of times when these people go outside the UK, and stuck there, they may have started a relationship there and have children there. The children they have got in the UK can make a close family member claim. However, that child or those children outside the UK that is at the sharp end of supporting that individual. When they're stuck outside the UK, these individuals could be in the 60s, the 70s, etc. That individual in Ghana, Jamaica, wherever, is supporting them financially, etc., medication, etc. But those that are in the UK, they may have been supporting them as well, sending money through MoneyGram, etc. However, the one that's there in Sierra Leone cannot submit a close family member claim. Now, in order for the scheme to make sense, these changes need to be made. Another change that we are asking for as well is for we've got the primary claim, and the primary claimant has passed. It turns into a deceased estate claim. And when we talk about close family members, in a lot of cases, I've come across cases where you've got the primary claimant that has been impacted. However, due to the family structure, they may have been living in the same house. The close family members' impact can be more severe than the primary claimant. For instance, they're all living in the same house, 3 generations, mother who owns the house, with 3 adult children and her grandchildren. One of her children has got a couple of children or whatever. These adult children has to move out the house. Some of them may be going to university, etc. And we've had cases where the children or the child of the primary claimant living in the same household is that impacted that end up in a mental institution. Because what happened in this case, the children of the daughter, which would be the grandchildren of the primary claimant, ended up in a care. One east, one west. I think one ended up outside the UK, one ended up in another country outside the UK. That was the dynamic of the situation. However, should that close family member pass, that claim cease, that claim would die. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's nonsensical. In order for the scheme to make sense, it needs to change that if a close family member pass, just like the primary claimant, that claim for the close family member should be another family member, whomever, should be able to submit a claim similar to what would happen in a primary claim scenario, where it turns in a deceased estate claim. In order for the scheme to make sense, we need these changes, and it needs to be explicitly stated in the guidance note, all the guidance note, including the caseworker guidance, as well as whatever guidance note that would be relevant in such a situation. There are things there that are implicit, but they need to be specific. They need to be written and stated clearly in the guidance note that's the situation. The change that was made regarding the stepchildren is more of an implicit situation. That means it's implied. You could assume it depends on the situation. No, it's not just implicit, it's explicit. And these are the things that we've been asking Professor Livermore to refer to the Home Office and the Home Secretary and make these changes. So we'll talk about changes and digging into the scheme and addressing the specifics of the scheme, the intricacies and the failings, etc. These are the things that we're talking about. They are incremental changes, very much so, incremental changes. However, they can be very impactful, especially if we get to the stage where the scheme is removed from the Home Office. Can be very impactful. Back to you, Garrick.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, so we've got around 10 minutes before we finish. I'm just going to give a little summary of what we talk about, and then I will give you some information notice board, what's happening over the next few weeks, etc. Just to say that the Home Office have now produced their own flyer to promote the Windrush compensation scheme. And again, they've responded to the suggestion that we've made to make sure that the scheme is promoted not just as a Caribbean Windrush scheme, but as a global scheme to include the following. So it says, Windrush compensation is available to people of all ages, nationalities, including those from Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean backgrounds. So now they're now promoting that in their outreach publication leaflet that they take around with them. So again, it's good that that is happening. Because as we said, a lot of people, particularly African and Asian people, when they hear about Windrush, they just close their ears because it's a Caribbean image that they have, and the information they see out there relates to the Caribbean. So we want to change the narrative and make sure people understand it is global, 65 country. And yesterday, Liverpool Advocates for Windrush attended the Bulto International Festival, and we were able to engage with a number of Africans about the scheme. Many did not know that this is applicable to them. Again, we're using every opportunity that we get to promote that. And, we had the 65 country printed out on paper on our table, and also with all the map of each country. So as people come to our table, they could see their country, staring them in the face. I had conversation with people from Cyprus, from Congo, from Grenadier, St. Vincent, all as a result of people seeing the flags and the name of their country. So please, let's promote that and share that information. And the other thing that we need to make a note of, that all this conversation that we've had today around primary claimants, which we start our conversation to focus on the primary claimant, and then we went into the close family claim, and then we spoke about the deceased claim, those three. And we also emphasized the point that we know many people need some help with the application and with the reading and the guidance. And please reach out to somebody that can help you. Reach out to Liverpool Advocates for Windrush. In the chat, you'll find the information, all lowercase, www.liverpooladvocatesforwindrush.org. It's there. When you get onto the website, you will see email address and you'll see contact email and telephone contact. That is there to assist you, help you with your application. Maybe you already drafted your application. You just need somebody to talk to and to just run through a few things that you're not sure about. Again, please reach out to the advocates. And then also on each of the websites, you will find more information as to who is eligible to apply and more detail around each of the claim and the guidance relating to the claim. A lot more information on the website, justiceforwindrushgeneration.co.uk or liverpooladvocatesforwindrush.org. So information is there. Please share with other people. Let them know that because we're based in Liverpool, that you can reach out to us from any part of the country. And in fact, you can reach out to us from any part of the world. Yes. So please make sure that people understand that. That's important. And then the other thing I need to mention is that if you already submitted a claim and you're waiting for some responses from the Home Office, and again, we're trying to monitor this, but there is no definitive whether you would get a response in 4 months and 4 weeks or 6 weeks. No, it is vary. There are still claims outstanding beyond 12 months, and there are claims that they receive an offer within 6 months. So, it varies. However, if you're waiting to get a response from your application, you can still reach out to the advocates and discuss this with them, because again, they'll be able to give you some information. And also, if you haven't yet submitted your application and you're now considering that, having heard the close family claim and having heard the deceased estate claim and having heard the primary claimant, you're now in a position now to make a claim. Yes. So again, that's the whole purpose of the Sunday chat, is to help individual to submit claim. Yeah. If this conversation is not getting you to submit claim, then the conversation is not beneficial. We want you to use the information you're receiving and then submit your claim. Yeah. At the moment, there is no timeline as to when the Windrush compensation scheme will be open. We don't know in 2, 3, 4 years whether we will still have a scheme. We don't know. But at the moment we have. So we want to please get as many application as we can to the scheme. Yeah. And finally, I'm just going to ask Mimi, can you just tell us something about the conference that you attend in London, please, the TUC Black Workers Conference? Any highlights? Okay, let me just move to Roland. Roland, any highlights of the conference that you attended? Just a couple of points before we go, please.
No, not at this stage. On the next Sunday chat, I'll do highlights.
Okay, that's fine. Yo, okay,
yeah,
that's great.
But before you go, Gary,
yeah,
like to make a couple of announcements. Have you announced the 22nd of May at the
No,
yet?
I'm just about to do that now.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. So I've got an announcement I'd like to make. If there is anyone, if you know of anyone that has worked in the UK and have left the UK, no longer living in the UK, even in some cases where they have only worked in the UK for a year, it's possible to get some pension from the UK. It will not be unlikely. It will not be the full amount of pension that you would get if you have done the full 30 odd years. It will be proportionate to the amount of years that you've worked in the UK. Now, in some cases, you may have already approached the pension office and you were told that you're not entitled to any pension because you have not got enough years. Still, it is possible, depending on the situation, to get a pension from the UK, or some pension from the UK. So them telling you that you've not gotten enough years, may have only done 6 years, they may say to you need 10 years minimum. If they have said that to you, that is not end game, so to speak. It may be possible to get some pension from the UK. My telephone number is in the chat. I've been doing it for over 13 years, assisting individuals who have worked here for a short period of time, left the UK, is now in Congo or Spain or whatever. So I'll put my number in the chat now. You call me, let's have a discussion. On the 22nd of June, we're gonna be on Windrush Day. We're gonna be in Ipswich. Garrick, I think Mr. Challenger
is here,
is on the chat.
Yeah,
if he wants to, in a few minutes, in a few seconds, he can. Garrick, I'll hand back to you. You can invite Mr. Challenger, or you can do other announcements.
That's fine. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Mimi, that's all right.
Yes, highlights for the conference. For me, it was quite an enjoyable day.
Mimi, what we've decided to do is to do the highlights of the next week in the next session.
Okay, no problem. I'll hold on.
Yeah. We're going to do that. We're going to do a summary the next session. Okay. Let me just bring in Mr. Challenger from Ipswich, who's organizing the event on Windrush Day. Just to say a few words, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Gareth. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, Charles Challenger here. Yeah, it's just obviously we're very pleased here in Ipswich in Suffolk to be inviting Justice for Windrush Generations. And it will be held on the 22nd of June of this year at the Ipswich Town Hall, which is the civic hall here in Ipswich in Suffolk. We've been running this event for the past 4 years, which has been very successful, well supported by the Ipswich Borough Council, and this year Suffolk County Council is also supporting the event. We also have the support of BBC Suffolk, which covers Cambridgeshire, Bedfordshire, and as far as up to Northampton and part of Essex. So it's quite a wide, we get quite a wide coverage. And this year also we'll be having the Ipswich Hospital radio, which will be doing the covering. And we have a lot of local rural magazines here, which is distributed. So it should be a very, very good event. And we are really looking forward for the Justice for Windrush generations to be here with us in Ipswich. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So again, we will promote that event far and wide, and you know, we should be in summer by then. So we hope to have, you know, nice weather for the day. So yes, we will share that on social media in other places. And just finally, before we finish, just to say, our next lobby of Parliament for May, 22nd of May, and we're just finalizing the Windrush manifesto, which will be highlighted in the next session in Parliament by Professor Patrick Burnham. So we now have a official document manifesto that will go out to all the respected political parties and also in other places in relation to what we want from any of the government, and to make sure that the Windrush agenda is not lost, and we address some of these issues that's been outstanding for so long. And what we've done with this is to make sure that the post office scandal and the Windrush scandal is put on the same platform, because we're looking at equity across each of those government scandals, and we're asking the question as to why the post office scandal initial payment is set at 600,000, and the Windrush compensation payment, initial payment, is set at 10,000. So these are big issues that we will be pushing in our manifesto in the next couple of weeks, and then after the 22nd of May, there is a special reparation event on the 12th of June in Parliament. And this will be an event, annual event, that Global African Congress, who is a reparation organization, so they are pushing this event. And that event will be chaired and sponsored by Labour MPs for Stratham, Rabiola Ali. And so we again want people to invite their MP, their own MP, to the 12th of June, the reparation event. And as you know, that the reparation agenda is now a big agenda, that, you know, not just here in the UK, but CARICOM is also spearheading that international conversation. So please make a note of these events. A lot of these events will be shared and are being shared on social media. You can get it also from following a number of different organizations. You can get it from Global African Congress and the Sunday Solidarity. Every Sunday we have those sessions. So the information is already out there in the public domain. So please share it with other people and let them know this is happening. And please support these events. it's important that we support these events. I think we've covered everything. So it's just after 5 minutes after 4. So that just leaves me now to thank you all for attending, and look forward to see you in a couple of weeks' time. Our next platform will be the first Sunday for Q&A for Liverpool advocates for Windrush. That will be the next event, the first Sunday in May. So thank you very much. Have a good afternoon, and please reach out to the advocates. Let's get some application form complete and push for for more application being submitted. Thank you very much.
Hello, Garrick. Sorry about this. Can you please the postings at the beginning of this stream? I got cut off. I joined about 5 minutes after the transmission started, and then I got cut off. So whatever you put on, I didn't see.
Okay.
So is there any way you can repost that for me? I would really appreciate it.
Yes, I can do that now. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, if you can do it. And also, I know you're very busy. You've obviously had a very busy week. I sent an email Thursday. If you get a chance, if you could have a look at it.
Okay.
It was just to link up with the young lady with regard to like the mangrove scenario.
I saw that email. I did see that email. Yes.
So when you get a chance, pass on my details, and then if you want to get in contact with me, because I'm aware of data protection and so forth. But I've given my details. So when you get a chance, if you or Tanika can please do that, I would really appreciate it. And keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. That's fine. Yeah. I'm also promoting the North Wales Jamaica Society. So anyone living in Wales, have any friends, any contact in Wales, please reach out. We have a dedicated website, North Wales Jamaica Society. You can find us in Google. So anyone in Wales, please share that information. I'll put the link again in the chat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that it then, Garrick?
One more. One second. There's one more coming. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Yeah, you got them now.
I'll check that.
Yeah. So the North Wales meet on the first Saturday of each month. So the next one is the 4th of May. And we also have a, as I said, dedicated website with all that information.
Okay. Thank you, Garrick. Most appreciated.
Okay, no problem. Take care. Enjoy.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You can stop the recording now, Roland. Great. Thank you.